deed information.
Yeah, I have one is that the deed shows 14.6 acres for that parcel, and we have 18.
Correct.
So how do we get from the deed to the site plan?
Well, I think it's an error in the deed. That parcel, that the deed was based on a boundary survey that, if you look at that boundary survey, that's the one that subdivided out the two parcels in the front. And I think the intention of that survey was to survey just the frontage, and then it left all the backland as plus or minus calls on it. It didn't describe any monuments, it didn't describe any bearings, and everything was plus or minus foot or so. So I think, unfortunately, was the property was moved forward, that it didn't call for the entire property. It called for that survey, and that was a mistake. When you go, there was a court case that was in '78, and it's pretty well documented, that has plans that are associated with it that show the correct boundary of this property. I know the gentleman that had issue with it that lives out back. He's the owner of lot 18-5. We looked at his deed information as well, and what he's claiming, the 4 acres in the back parcel of this, there's no room in his deed for that. His holdings are basically entirely what his deed calls for.
Well, one of the things I want to avoid is like
Sure.
getting into like a dispute.
Right.
Isn't it wise though, Charlie, that you should go correct the deed?
Yes. And this would serve to do so.
So this is really correcting the deed also.
I would say so, yes. Yeah. So I will say that we did invite the property owner into our office at the meeting, after the end of the meeting. He gave me his contact number. We attempted several times. And in the interim, our surveyor put together this very nice and very complete, comprehensive survey package for him to review that not only showed how we made our boundary determination, but also it chased his property back quite a ways too. We had research from, I don't know if anybody's heard of this gentleman, Don Wilson. He's one of the preeminent researchers, surveyors. I've known him over the years. He's often in court in support of court land disputes and things like that. He often prevails. There was 2 other surveyors, perhaps 3 other surveyors, that also recognized the boundary as we have it on here as well. So I had offered to meet with the gentleman. He never responded back to my phone calls. So just for another added level of comfort, I had the property owner, Mr. Khalil, call him as well. It's the same number, and offer the same thing. He declined to meet with us. It's unfortunate because we prepared, I think, a fairly nice package. We're interested in see what he had to show us, but he declined the offer.
Could you just elaborate a little bit when you said that this particular site plan sort of remedies, let's say, the deed in question? I mean, how is it? I mean, just expound on it a little bit. How does it remedy it, rather than saying that why don't we remedy the deed now before we proceed, as opposed to remedying it in sort of a site plan process?
I suppose that could be done, but I don't really think it's necessary at this point. You have a surveyor stamp on here. This plan is going to be recorded. And when Bob sells off that parcel in the front, it's going to call out this plan. And then I would imagine maybe he could even do a corrective deed at the same time if he wanted to.
Anyone else have any questions on the board?
I mean, I just struggle with what we have in
Interest
front of
and,
us.
Right.
Sorry.
If there's any legal issues or contested scenario, I guess my question is, does that put this board's decision in as part of that process? And I know that it's not typical for us to sort of make decisions on land use where something may be in conflict. And our decision is used as the basis for some sort of, contested scenario. So I'm just curious about.
I'm reading, I'm looking at the executive summary. I don't know if you had a chance to read that. And that kind of says, obviously, we're not the appropriate, person to make that decision, right? The boundary issue.
Yeah.
That's not us.
No, I.
But what
I-
happens when we make a decision and
Yeah.
that's used as the
Right,
basis
and I'm
for an
kind of
argument?
looking at I'm just, kind of talking out loud as I'm looking at it. Obviously, Steve Keachy and Charlie Clary both looked at this. And they're saying, in this instance, what we're really looking at is just the adjustment, the lot line.
Yeah.
Everything else really isn't us.
And I will say this is not uncommon. We had an example in Danville a couple years ago, probably 3 years ago. The parcel was reported to be about 12 acres. And when we were done with our survey, it was 7 acres. So I had some bad news for our own client. This is kind of in reverse. There's a little bit more land area here than what the deed had called for, but it's not uncommon. There's sometimes some fairly substantial errors and differences from the deed call to what the actual boundary is once you've established it.
Tim, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in cases where the applicant comes in with a well-surveyed plan, if there's some discrepancies, that becomes a civil matter between property owners. So where our legal obligation is, if we have a survey plan that's stamped, then that's what we can base our approval or disapproval on. So it doesn't entangle us later in legal.
We'll get involved later.
The lot line adjustment isn't,
Lot line adjustment.
it's not where the
doesn't-
boundary line is.
Yeah, it's not in contention of that anyway.
It doesn't seem that the board has any major concerns about specifically to the lot line adjustment. And then I guess what we're all sort of saying is if there is any additional conflict, then
This might not be the appropriate forum for it. I think that's sort of the
Yeah,
conclusion.
the boundary line's not us.
yeah,
For
that
sure.
our decision on the lot line
Right.
adjustment doesn't necessarily influence anything that could happen
Right.
in the future.
Yeah, because the way I'm reading through the executive summary, there's a lot line adjustments like on basically the Main Street side, which isn't near the boundary line.
Yeah,
If it was on the boundary line, then I'd say we have a
It's-
whole
it's-
different matter.
yeah. I mean, it's on the back side of the property.
If we're just looking at lot line adjustment off Main Street,
yeah, if the lot line adjustment involves some contested property, we might have a bigger concern.
correct. That's how in reading through the executive summary, that's kind of how they're putting it.
All right. Anyone else have any questions?
And it's good that Charlie Clary weighed in on it too.
Is there anyone from the audience that wants to expound on this? Just state your name and your address.
Tax map 18 lot 5. I have some objections, or I've been sending the objections in.
Yep.
I sent a copy you should all have a copy. Charles should have a copy as well. Did you receive your copy?
Yes.
I'd like to read that into the record if I may, well.
Sure. It's the original one.
Excuse me. Dear Charlie, thank you for the offer to meet. I feel that it is unwarranted at this time. The primary issue is raised in opposition to JJ AMBS LLC application that you submitted to the Plastow Planning Board on February 19, 2025. It is clear that your, on February 19th, 2025 is clear error in which you represent the 4 ± acres of land in this eastern portion of our property belongs to your client, JJ AMBS LLC. This is shown in the lot line adjustment plans that you submitted in support of this application. Your client's deed for the 2021 purchase of land on the westerly side of Main Street, also known as Route 121A, in the town of Plastow, shown a parcel 3 on a plan entitled Plan of Land in Plastow, New Hampshire, by 121 Realty Company, Inc., dated November 1977. Prepared by Francis M. DeCesar, recorded in the RCRD as Plan D7674, your client's subject property. Clearly shows the 4+ acres on our side of the common lot line. The description of property in your client's 2021 warranty deed, book 6249, page 329, reconciles with the lot lines shown on Plan D7674. In fact, the deed includes that plan by reference. You must have been aware of this as your client recorded the deed. This plan and the deed show a total of 10 distinct property lines. The lot line adjustment plan you submitted shows a total of 13 lines prior to your proposed changes. The difference represents the encumbrance onto our property. As you can see on the attached marked up plans, your lot line adjustment plan incorporates the area outlined in pink as part of your client's property. In fact, the actual lot line is shown in yellow highlight as confirmed by Plan D7674. That is incorporated by reference in your client's deed and also attached for your convenience. Within your application, you state that Carlton Path, AKA Frog Pond Road, crosses into your client's subject property. In fact, that point at which Carlton Path crosses the lot lines within the 4+ acres that we own. Our ownership of these 4 acres is also evident on the certified copy of the RCRD plan D38359 that was prepared for the Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire. This plan shows the 4+ acres on our side of the common boundary. See plan created by Eric Mitchell and Associates for the Southeast Land Trust of New Hampshire, September 27, 2013. The subject of 4± acres clearly shown as part of the 3 Carlton Path belonging to James F. Mosher Jr. and Susan Mosher. These records make no reference to the 1978 court order case E2033-78, Barackle Bank versus Roy, on which you justify this encumbrance of our land. None of the current previous owners of your client's property, parcels 2 and 3, were party to that litigation. This case involved trespass, property damage, and ownership disputes on a portion of our property that are far away from the lot line between our properties. It had nothing to do with any final adjustment of the lot lines between your clients and our properties, as you state at the bottom of your page of your lot line adjustment application. In fact, 2 parcels of land were added to our property as a result of that final resolution case in 2000. To move forward, the current application and recording of these erroneous plans without correction will cause irreparable harm to me and my family. The error in these plans is obvious, and as professional engineers and surveyors, you should be able to rectify your errors without my further assistance. Please acknowledge the error and correct the application and accompanying plans that you reflect the proper boundaries at the rear of your client's property. Once you have brought your application into compliance with legal descriptions contained in your client's deed, I will be happy to withdraw my objections. Respectfully, James Mosher.
Again, I'm just going to reiterate the fact that, the purview of this board seems to be that we're relying on the fact that we do have, a surveyor's stamp. All right, but just to indulge a little further here, is there anything, is the quote error or variance on the deed in question, 14.8, 14.3, is that, incorporated in sort of what we just heard read? I think the only thing that I saw in there was that there was a reference to a court case and such, but.
So I guess at this point, what I would offer is, again, to have Mr. Mosher come into our office and review our deed information. I think once you get a chance to really look at it and get a good understanding of it, I think you'll agree with what we've done here. But what I would ask the board to do is approve the plan tonight. And I would give him the courtesy of meeting with us before we ask for the Mylar to be recorded, so that we're not wasting the board's time anymore. I really was hopeful that he was going to come meet with us last week. He
All
didn't.
right, well, let me ask, Mr. Moser, we did continue the hearing, to afford you the opportunity
Right.
for
And
that.
since then, we've done more research, and
Okay.
we're right. There's
Are you,
nothing to go over.
okay, so there's nothing to benefit from having said meeting that we had discussed. That's all I'm
Well-
trying to
Well, I mean, everything, the
ascertain.
objections, yes, I mean, he is giving you the correct deed and the correct plan, but what that reconciles is not what the deed in the actual plan is.
Okay.
So he's submitting the wrong plan. That is 100% wrong. I understand he can change the front lot lines. I know that's what he's trying to do. But when he's recording that plan, he's going to record my land with it. That's what's happening.
All right, so,
Because he's not
so we're
including
not,
that back lot
so we're
line.
not looking to have.
I know, okay, I'm sorry.
We're not looking to have an additional meeting in which, to sort of clarify. Because like I said, I think, I don't think this is the appropriate venue to sort of litigate, these types of things. So,
But by doing so, he's going to record that back land,
Right.
which
But-
is going to be harmful for me and my family. I mean, it's going to, now it would be civil court and all that other, it's going to be crazy.
well, that's what, I guess I'm just going to say again, I don't think this, this board is the particular venue to litigate those types of, whether or not, they're valid or not valid, it's just not the appropriate forum for it. So,
Okay.
okay, so,
Well, let's
so you're
make
not interested in having, what was just put forward, the idea that, if prior to the Mylar being submitted, to have some sort of clarifying type meeting of some kind?
Right, and if there is an issue and we do find a conflict, I would be glad to change the plan. But I would ask the board to approve it based on this surveyed stamp plan. You haven't brought forward your own survey. The only recourse that you would have right now is to hire your own surveyor. But before that, we'd be willing to sit down with
How
you.
is that recorded, sir? Right there, that plan.
I'm
right
asking
there.
you,
Okay, there's just no back and forth, please. You just address the chair and such.
Well, I guess there's nothing else to talk about then. I've submitted my objections.
We approve of the
And
plan.
All right,
all the evidence is there, and I don't want to go back and forth, so.
So going back to what I was sort of saying earlier was, and I think Tim kind of said it as well, our duties are to record a plan as presented to us with surveyor stamps, so on and so on. If there is a property dispute that gets reconciled, it doesn't put us on the hook for anything. We did our due diligence in terms of accepting what was presented to us and then made a decision. It doesn't necessarily bind that, hey, the Plastow Planning Board approved this plan, which installs this as the correct lot line, because there was an opportunity to have that adjudicated in some
I
other
think
capacity, right?
the executive summary kind of speaks directly to
Yeah.
that. Right, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
no, Mr. Pelletier.
You said that this would rectify that difference. Is there another mechanism that would, outside of this, that would rectify that? The discrepancy in the deed and the acreage?
well, I think once this plan is recorded, then the deed will be recorded along with it, and that would rectify the issue.
I'm saying if an alternative, I know what you're saying, yeah, if we do this, then that would rectify it. But outside of that, is there another mechanism that could be resolved, not through the board, not through the,
So, okay, so you're asking if the plan's recorded and then Mr. Mosher hires a surveyor and he comes up with a difference or
I'm saying,
conflict with this?
is there a way that you can rectify the discrepancies before you come? You're saying you're relying on us, once we do this, that would rectify the discrepancies. And my understanding is that, that's not in you gave us a stamped drawing.
Right.
And
Well-
we're relying on you. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying, is there a way, there's a discrepancy. Is there a way to solve that discrepancy outside of using this plan?
Well, we could file a boundary plan and follow it up with the deed, revised deed, but then we'd have to resubmit this application again, and you're going to have the same conflict with Mr. Mosher.
it's actually not the conflict with Mr. Mosher that kind of troubles me a bit. It's that we have a plan that doesn't tie to the deed.
Deed.
And I get it that that's probably not a rare thing. But if we're asking for a deed as part of our checklist, that's indicative that the applicant owns the property that's in the deed that should match up to the plan. And I just don't know if the process is we should fix the deed before we address the plan. And I don't know, I don't have the answer to that, but that incongruity, gives me a bit of a pause.
I agree.
Could the plan be conditionally approved upon recording of a corrective deed?
That was one thing I thought
Yeah,
about.
I don't think that's necessarily
That would probably be a
unreasonable.
good solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim, are we making more hay out of this than we need to? I just don't want to be in a position where we're memorializing something that, I mean, if there's a dispute, I don't want to be memorializing something that doesn't necessarily have to be. But I mean, that sounds like an eminently reasonable solution. And
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that would
I
probably
agree with
work.
that.
I think it's a logical solution.
Yeah, the last Nancy, I think you just mentioned, that you agreed to. Oh, I'm sorry.
well, I guess what I'm saying, and this would be sort of the last bite at the apple here. The idea of conditioning approval or was it conditioning the approval of submission of the site plan on remedying the deed, right? Because I mean, right now the deed, there's a question and
Question on the date.
on the deed, and we're saying that the site plan remedies it, but how about if we remedy the deed up front before
Accepted.
before it's submitted?
So remedying that plan from the deed, reconciling with the plan.
Right. I mean, is there going to be any I mean, is there anything that would flow from the deed being potentially updated, or if it needed to be updated? I mean, is the site plan affected in your opinion, Mrs. Ilch?
So the deed would be based upon this site plan
Okay.
prior to the lot line adjustment.
Okay.
Right. And then we'll have to draft a second deed based on the lot line adjustment.
So the deed would be on that site plan,
Be based upon this site plan, this boundary
but it
plan.
should be based on the old deed. You're
Right. And
adding.
that's where we have the difference.
You're adding.
Yes.
Well, yeah, like I said, the part if you're litigating, some aspect of, this, the narrative that the board is not, this isn't the appropriate forum. So I think this is sort of the best, remedy that you're going to see with respect to that. And you'd have to go and entertain other options to seek the remedy that you're looking to have remedied.
Okay, so can you reword that? Are we going on the original deed? Is that what we're looking for to go before it's accepted?
So the original deed isn't as accurate as this plan, okay? And it doesn't.
It
make-
isn't or is it accurate?
It isn't as accurate as this plan. And so what the board is asking for is perhaps we could put together a new deed that reflects this plan prior to the lot line adjustment, put that on record, and then this plan can be recorded with the lot line adjustment deed.
With the correct,
His deed was just recorded in 2021. I mean, that was just a few years ago, so.
And we surveyed just shortly thereafter.
Yeah, then I guess I'm not understanding, why wouldn't you find all that in 2021?
There was no need at that time. We
There's
hadn't
no need
done-
to finish recording the rest of the property?
I disagree.
All right,
Yeah.
no,
yeah, that
Well,
should
what,
be.
it does
So,
sound
Bert-
like that's a possible solution because, I mean, Dan made a great point that, there's a deed that, doesn't necessarily reflect the plan before us. So,
I mean, there are a couple things playing out here. We
yeah,
want-
our
we wanna have on
responsibility is
our
to look at,
checklist,
yep.
when a deed comes in, it's on the checklist to, say we've received deeds, but, implicitly we'd want to sort of tightly anchor said deeds to.
Sounds like
the
both parties
application.
need to figure out the deed piece, and then, our conditional approval is based on a resolved deed.
So,
And I agree, there's no reason why we can't grant conditional approval tonight.
Right.
Correct.
And
That way,
then-
the lot line adjustment, it's all set, ready to roll.
Then they come back with the things.
And then you figure out the other piece, and that's not us.
Yep.
all right. Is there anything else? Anyone else from the public want to
Thank you.
weigh in? You're welcome. That's it. So, all right, any other questions?
No.
All right, then I guess we'll close the hearing, the public hearing portion of this at 7:03. And let's see, how do we want to phrase the draft motion here?
I think you just say, I move to conditionally approve the lot line adjustment pending a registered and updated deed, something along those
Updated
lines,
deed.
right?
And updated, okay,
Yeah, updated recorded deed.
updated and recorded. deed.
Updated, recorded.
All right, so, all right, conditional approval. I move that lot line adjustment between 238 Main Street, tax map 18, lot 11, and 244 Main Street, tax map 18, lot 10, that exchanges equal plus minus 27,560 square feet areas of land with the following conditions. Final recording plans will have all applicable professional stamps affixed. Monumentation certification by a New Hampshire licensed land surveyor is submitted to the planning department. All conditions are met and the recording materials are submitted to the planning department within 90 days of the conditional approval. And the additional condition, pending an updated and recorded deed. Do we need to specify the actual deed in question, or
Come on, give me that again.
Yeah.
which one?
It's a good thing it's
Just the
being
last
recorded.
one.
Okay, all right. Last condition, pending updated and recorded deed.
Any other language on that, Tim?
Well, in the first sentence, it just says, I move to, it should say, I believe, I move to approve the lot line adjustment, blah, 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 with the
condition.
following conditions.
Yeah, right.
And then, but Tim's condition, the additional condition that Richard said, sounds
Yes.
good to you?
All right, motion's on the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So it's
You only got 4 votes because you haven't appointed
What's the
the
second on that?
alternates.
Bill was,
Thank you.
all right, so 4-0-0. I didn't appoint,
You didn't appoint an alternate.
yeah, I should have appointed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Have
the point
a good
of-
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to remedy that going forward, I'm not going to.
It's not me.
Right.
Yeah, because he's gonna be coming up, like, it's gotta be,
Well, I can appoint both you guys, right?
right, point them both,
So
Dan and for Laurie.
What's that?
There's gonna be two
Appointing
of
you
appointed,
as a
because
voting
you're
member
for Laurie,
tonight?
You're for Dan.
And Nolan, I'll also appoint you as a voting member.
Well, Dan wasn't a voting member,
No, I didn't appoint.
so you only have to appoint one, myself or Nolan. If Nolan was at the prior
The
meeting,
next application is,
for the next application, yeah, if Nolan was at the prior meeting, he can. Do we have previous discussion?
Oh, yeah, that's true, so no one, he.
Because the Sweet Hill Farm application was continued.
it was continued. There was no discussion.
No discussion, okay. I didn't miss anything, okay.
Can we let the record show I'm recusing myself?
Yeah,
Yes. And give a minute to set up here. All right, PB 25-03, the completeness of an application from Daniel Kane, Sweet Hill Farm LLC for a final site plan review of a brew pub. The plan proposes a 2-story, 11,725 total finished footprint to include a bar, brew pub, pizza bar, private rooms, kitchen, office, storage, and related parking and stormwater management. The property is located at 82 Newton Road, tax map 68, lot 8 in the ICR and LDR zoning districts. The applicant is the property owner of record. If the application is found to be complete, the planning board may immediately conduct a public hearing. All right.
All right, I'll move to accept the application from Dan Kane, Sweet Hill Farm LLC for a site plan for brew pub at 80, is that the right one? No. That's the completeness, right?
Yep, no, it's fine. It's,
82 Newton Road, tax map 68, lot 8, as noted in the legal notice as planning board matter 25-03 is complete.
Second it.
right, Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 1, 2, 3. Am I missing something? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did I just point with too many
Sorry.
people?
I'm Laurie. I'm Laurie for that vote. So Tom is on record as the vote.
All right.
I voted aye.
Okay.
I know it's confusing.
5-0.
2, 3, 4.
Tom and Laurie look alike, I know.
So it's the 6 people we have tonight voting on this?
She's smarter though.
Only 5, that's the most we ever have.
All right.
Good evening.
evening.
Tom Schomburg of SEC Associates.
Dan Kane.
As mentioned, this is a request for review of the proposal to introduce agritourism as another component of the farm's existing agricultural use through incorporation of a New Hampshire licensed brew pub. The property is located at 82 Newton Road and is 25.62 acres in size. The site has 1,380 feet of frontage on the west side of Newton Road or Route 108. Navigate to the next. The property is located within 2 zoning districts, the integrated commercial and residential, consisting of all the land within 500 feet of Newton Road, and the low-density residential, consisting of the remaining land outside of the ICR zone. A tiny portion of the southwest end of the lot within the wetland complex within a flood hazard zone. A small portion of the northwest area of the lot is within the Aquifer Protection District. The remainder of the property is unencumbered by any additional overlying zones. There are a couple of wetlands on the property as identified by our wetland scientist, Timothy Ferwerda. Those wetlands include a poorly drained area near the roadway, a poorly drained pocketed area in the northwest corner, and an area in the southwest corner of the existing irrigation pond. The upland soils range from excessively well drained to moderately drained, and the slopes are relatively flat to slight throughout. The majority of the site is open field and is utilized for growing farm produce and is actively farmed, supporting a variety of hops, grains, vegetables, berries, and the like. It should be noted that Dan has obtained a building permit to expand the farm stand and increase the parking area serving the farm stand, to help meet the needs and to be supportive of the agricultural use. In addition, the farm has received building permits to add a hops barn and barley barn. The proposal is to site the brew pub in an existing building under construction with some modification at the northeast corner of the property near Newton Road. This is a location where it provides some exposure to the roadway, is easily accessible, and can be incorporated without significant grading and site disturbance or interfering with the current operation of the farm. Additionally, the proposed brew pub will lie completely within the ICR district. Access to the farm will remain throughout the NHDOT approved driveway at the north end of the property on Newton Road across from Corliss Hill Road. This access currently serves the entire farm and is conveniently located between farm stand and proposed brew pub. In order to support the proposed additional use, the existing parking area north of the proposed brew pub will be reconfigured and enlarged. This is parking area down here. So there will be additional parking located to the north of the farm stand, and an additional parking area for employees will be located to the south of the existing greenhouses, as shown here and here. Total parking provided is 116 spaces. As proposed, there will be 205 seats available in the brew pub, requiring 69 parking spaces and 57 total employees, with the highest shift count of 29 employees. Total parking required is 98 spaces. Accommodations have been made to provide handicap parking, loading areas, and fire lanes as well. To serve the brew pub, water and sewage needs, we're proposing to utilize the recently installed 2 on-site wells located at the northwest corner of the property, as shown on this slide here. These wells have current siting approval from NHDES and are limited to flow of 9,720 gallons per day based upon the well radius size. Sewage from the brewery waste, the restaurant, and farm stand will be collected into a series of gravity-fed septic tanks located south of the farm stand and directed to a conventional pipe and stone septic area located near the end of the employee parking area, which is located here. The waste from the brewery will go through a series of tanks, starting with a side stream tank into a pH treatment tank, and finally a settling tank prior to release to the other waste tanks. A separate calamity tank will be provided for the brewery should a spill occur, and then grease traps will be provided for each building. The stormwater plan is to collect all stormwater as sheet flow from the parking areas and direct them into several collector basins. There's one collector basin off of the parking lot near the brew pub, and one off of the employee parking south of the greenhouses. From there, the flows will be directed by a series of stormwater structures or piping to a large stormwater basin located west of the farm stand near the northerly property line for final treatment. It could be here. Erosion control will be placed throughout and maintained during the construction process. All disturbed areas will be loamed and seeded and stabilized. The site is an existing agricultural use. The proposal introduces agritourism with the addition of the brew pub. Every effort has been made to distinguish between the two and how it relates to site disturbances. In consideration of fire protection and emergency access, all parking aisles and driveways will be 24 feet in width and allow for maneuvering of large apparatus. An on-site 30,000-gallon fire cistern shall be provided near the brew pub. This cistern will be connected to roof drains of the building to ensure a constant water supply, and the brew pub will be entirely sprinklered. There are 2 state approvals needed. NHDES sewage disposal system, which has been submitted and is currently under review, and a final NHDES water supply approval for the previously mentioned wells. There are no known variances required for this proposal at this time, and this application is intended to meet all siting and setback requirements of the 2 zones located on the site. The plans before you tonight were revised to address review comments from Dee Voss and Steve Keach. We did receive another letter from Steve on Monday, which will be addressed. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
I think that was a fairly succinct summary of, what is a fairly involved project. Not necessarily overly large. I mean, the actual construction of the building is 6,000 square feet. The building, half of that's already existing. But there is creating the correct parking, creating the correct flow. The overwhelming issue from developing this farm from the beginning has been how to preserve every square inch of agricultural space that we could. We didn't want to invade that. We also intentionally located what we wanted to do in areas where there were relatively poor soils for growing. And even where we ended up locating the wells, which used to be our old hop field, if you will, we've started the process of moving that hop field, which will be to the south of the leach fields. The soil's much better there, and the soil where the wells are now, including the radius, were of poorer quality. And we could see that in terms of the quality of the hops. So, every effort has been made to preserve, open space. That's the real value of the farm, and not impact soil health. And I'm embarrassed to say how much money I've spent promoting healthy soils. This farm is in markedly better condition to grow now than it was when I purchased it. And in some cases, 7 years into leaving a big chunk of land fallow of a 10-year plan, just to allow what was in the soil to leach itself out.
Just a quick question with respect to that. Are you talking about like rehabilitating the soil in some way to,
And-
or
and
to
the-
organic farming?
And we are an organic farm, although we're not a certified organic farm, but we practice organic farming. I kind of maybe am a little bit of a purist, but organic farming has to do with the soil. And when I see aquaponics now permitted to call themselves organic, I struggle with that. But yes, so there was a product called atrazine, which was, this farm grew corn for many years. That is outlawed in the entire world, except here. That takes 10 years to get out of the soil, or enough out of the soil that you can start to regrow again. And atrazine's a weed killer. You know, it's like Roundup on steroids. So, and we've stopped growing corn because we haven't figured out a way to grow it organically, and principally because of weed control. You know, virtually everything else, the hops we can grow organic, the barley we can grow organic. We just can't grow the corn organically.
Can you talk a little bit about the brew pub treatment, the waste?
So there's two aspects here. One is the largest thing that the brewery produces is waste. You know, it's a very wasteful process, primarily in not only solid wastes in the grains, but liquid waste. And that liquid waste is high in what's called BOD and high in what's called TSS, which is, BOD is a biological oxygen demand. TSS is total soluble solids. So when you look at liquid and you see like it looks like particles in it, that's TSS for the most part. And so the only way to deal with that is generally by a process known as either you can filter up to a point, or it's a process known as hydraulic retention. You know, you let it sit for a while and everything settles down. And there's specific calculations to that. I started working with New Hampshire DES in their sustainable brewery kind of process. And I came to the realization I was willing to spend more money making beer than making waste. So I've eliminated the traditional wort making process where you take grains, you extract the wort, and then you start to make beer from it. So what I've done is I'm working with a company that out of Germany, actually, that we just manage the fermentation. So that company uses our recipes, makes the wort for us in a fairly dense form that we add our own water to. We add some hops to, we add our own yeast, everything, and we ferment it. So if the normal brew process would produce 4 barrels of waste for every 1 barrel of beer you brew, and a barrel of beer is 31 gallons. This process produces, you know, gallons of waste versus barrels of waste, and it reduces it, you know, by a factor of 10 to 15. So, and again, I made this decision. It's a little bit more expensive on the front side, but I can drastically cut down now the amount of space and the amount of water that I'm putting in the leach field. So that's one thing. The second thing is CO2 is a huge waste factor in beer, because obviously not only are you carbonating the beer, but when you go to dispense it, you're releasing that CO2 into the air. So what we do, we worked with a company out of Missouri that basically in these serving tanks, everything goes into a bag. The beer goes into a bag and it is pushed out through the taps. So it's already carbonated because it's been carbonated in the fermenting process. It pushes out the beer using compressed air. So we don't release, so our quote, carbon footprint, waste footprint is a fraction of a normal brewery.
So with the waste that it still does produce, even though it's a lot lower level, where does that go?
That flows right into the septic field, first it goes into a kind of settling tank. Its pH is adjusted because that's a big thing. So we bring that to a base level. And then we continue a series of settlement until it gets to the leach field. At each stage, it's monitored. So we have monitoring stations, we have flow valves, so that we know what all this looks like as it's matriculating through the waste system.
Yeah, you stand to negatively impact your own farming land if
No
you
question.
don't manage this properly.
Yeah, I'm the biggest benefactor in terms as the owner of the property from this process. And it's been my struggle since the beginning. I remember having conversations with Mike Dorman, years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and telling me, when you're going to file a site plan? I said, as soon as I can figure out how to handle all the waste.
How does
And
this compare with like a Throwback or somebody else who's probably, in theory is similar?
So Throwback actually they started with an aerobic system, an aerated system. So essentially, they play around reducing the amount of hydraulic retention by putting air into the effluent. So their septic system doesn't need to be as big. So their system was designed, but still it produces a chunk of waste. Their system was designed to produce 3.22 barrels of wastewater per barrel brewed. So it's still a highly inefficient system. I think they're still running around that, but they're having problems now with the system. And we looked at it was called a clean solution system, and it was $500,000 to treat the waste. And I concluded that I would rather spend my money making beer than fixing waste. But that's a comparison,
How much beer are you looking to make, like, annually?
So really, if you look at a brew pub, it's the limit on that if everyone drinks beer, and this is designed not for everyone to necessarily drink beer. Each seat should consume about 10 barrels of beer a year. So 310 gallons of beer. If that happened on the farm, I would be struggling to get to, 1,800 barrels a year. I anticipate we'll likely never see above 1,500 barrels. And the license allows us to produce up to 2,500.
Out of curiosity, how long have you owned the farm now?
7 years.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah.
Some days.
I never would have,
Some days it's like mud.
but it's one of those, I never would have guessed 7 years.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
7 years in April.
And what's,
Good for you.
yeah, that's great. What's the water demand?
So we size this on 25 gallons a minute, So now I have on a single well. So we have two wells now that each produce 25 gallons a minute. So, and what I plan to do with one is use one mostly for either emergencies, and it will power the sprinkler systems. Any
Consideration of the impacts to aquifers and any surrounding residents?
It's just you're looking at a max. We size this at 9,700 gallons per day that it would draw down. I'm going to be hard pressed to see if you're even at 2/3 of that, quite frankly. We're fortunate we have a fairly good water line on the farm, and we're not necessarily draining everything. Both those wells are down 600 feet.
Just a question on the leach fields. Might be a personal question. on
That's
my
because
part.
you're building one.
Yeah. Well, what's the life expectancy of those leach fields that you're using for the treatment?
That
I'm not as acknowledged in the lifespan of septic fields. From what I know and have been told, is you can expect a pipe and stone system to last you, if it's maintained and you don't flush things into it that you shouldn't be, at least 30 years.
And the idea is, it's the risk here is always execution, is the idea is to capture everything we can that we can pull out as a solid. And, that gets hauled away. Because that's what's going to impact, that's what's going to diminish the lifespan of that leach field. If we're not good at that, will hurt that. And I don't want to be building another one.
Anyone have some questions?
No, I mean, we've talked about this a long time, right? I know everyone's been looking forward to it.
Yep.
Did you reach out to NHDOT and have some discussion about the traffic patterns? And it's an interesting area, right? You got Crows Hill on the one side, you got.
Again, I have an approved driveway. I have an approved driveway for the agricultural use. I leave it at this. I don't, and I said this in a letter that I addressed to you guys. I really don't want to be part of the to be regulated hunting for more regulation. It's just, it's more my style. That being said, is I can envision, New Hampshire DOT wanting to do something in that area, which I would certainly want to be part of and cooperate with. I don't want to be having to be forced to go do it. I already have a driveway that serves the use. It's already approved. It's been approved for 27 years. The idea, and the other, I'm going to say one more thing. What I kind of get concerned about is changing how the planning board organizes itself, or rules of procedure, subdivision, on a particular application. And that's one of my concerns when I saw the New Hampshire DOT thing here. I get it if I was altering that driveway, if I was changing its use, and I'm not. I get it that I would need, no different than I have to go to New Hampshire DES for the well and for the septic. But
I'm just thinking about safety, and that benefits the community, could potentially benefit you, especially if someone was departing and, heaven forbid, there was an accident and legal issues. So I guess I just want to make sure it's safe.
And obviously, so don't I. I'm the ultimate, liability holder, in terms of that. But what would make it safe, I guess, is beyond what we've done today. And in the traffic pattern here does not create a major contributor. Anyways, that's a fundamental math structure.
I think that Tom's point with the DOT, I think it's something I think you should have them come and take a look at it. And I think it'll save you down the road. Because that is a state road. We don't have any jurisdiction over that road as a town. So no matter what we say, we have no say in it.
No.
Because the DOT could come in, as you're in the middle of putting it together.
Well, let me just ask a question.
Stop it, right?
Let me just ask a question to that. Whatever we do with respect to DOT, DOT, if they show up at any point and say that they have concerns, they're not precluded from imposing their will on you.
No, I'm on the state road.
So,
Yeah.
if they decide that something needs to be done,
Right.
you're going to have to respond.
Yeah, I would just think it'd be nice to get it done with. They might come down and say, look, you don't need anything. You're perfect. You're good.
Yeah.
But now you've got the sign off and you're all set.
Yep, I agree.
But this,
Yeah.
This is already,
Well, limit from Nolan.
this is already an approved driveway, right?
Yeah.
Since it's on a state road, it was approved, it was already approved previously.
Right.
But that was for the farm stand, not.
It actually predated the farm stand. It was, that approval was
For the
for
house.
both residential and business
Yep,
use.
it
I
was.
mean, that's the only thing is really just the DOT thing. That's, other than that. this
Let me ask a
They already
question.
approved it.
Let me ask a question. Would you like to be able to go and ask the DOT preemptively, or is that something you're saying you don't want to do? I mean, it's being framed as being something as a good thing for you,
Yeah,
but would you like that good thing to happen?
I don't, you know,
Okay.
I don't. And because I'm really taking something that's already approved and what am I asking for?
Right.
To make it more approved? I mean, and I can tell you, I know that road almost better than anyone probably in town. I look at the traffic, study the traffic. I can tell you, there are things that probably should be done on that road by New Hampshire DOT. That if they wanted me to, you know, alter the driveway a little bit or play around with stuff, I would certainly be willing to do, but in combination with what they want to do. I don't want to be the guy driving the process here. And
Yeah, I
I
agree.
just don't think that's fair.
No,
I agree.
I
I agree.
get that, and I would understand that. I just think if the driveway's approved, they just gotta write a quick letter, we're good to go. And now you have no worries at all there. Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a fair one. I'm the skeptical of the, you know, regulator one.
I
you
get
know?
it.
I do think back to the community MD edition, and that was a bad intersection before. And I'm not saying you have a bad intersection. It's not.
Right.
And that was the only time we ever really gave extra attention to it, made a recommendation to the DOT, and they acted, and it was good for the town. Just figure we might as well mention it and have a conversation about it, but it is good that it's already an improved location, and if they want to get involved, they will, or if they don't, they don't.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's always been my
think it's
precedent,
up
right?
to
Someone goes in, they have to have an approved
Sure.
DOT, so I
Yeah,
just
we-
want to follow same suit as we've always done.
Through the standard checklist of discussing a new plan.
Yeah, that's all.
But
I'm
one of the
just going to say, I don't think we, you know, should be in the business of making it difficult for an applicant. If the applicant
No, we
doesn't-
don't.
If the applicant
I'm not
doesn't
saying
want-
that either. I'm just saying we bring it up.
Yeah.
We always bring it up, but I think, to me, it should be just as part of the approval, just conditional approval. Other than that,
Yep.
to me, it's boom, we're done.
Yep.
You know,
But
you know,
if we want to do, if, to me, not we, but if the planning board wants to do that, it seems to me then to be really looking at subdivision regulations, site plan regulations, and establish it as part of the process versus waiting for an applicant to come in front of you and do it. That's
Yeah,
all
I don't
my
think
point.
and I didn't bring it up to have that level. I just brought it up because we oftentimes just, as a matter of course, have an open discussion about the plan and the impacts. And, you know, it sounds like, I'm not sure what your expected trips per day are. I know it'll vary on day to day, maybe on the weekends could be a little higher, but
So the New
Well,
Hampshire
if you want
DOT.
to speak to that, I think it's, because it's going to be germane to.
So
I
New
think-
Hampshire DOT generally considers a major traffic generator as anything 100 or over peak trips per hour. So that whatever the peak time is, whatever the distribution is, they assume that. So I went through the International Trip Engineers manual, and the entire farm, you know, is looking at it very conservatively, was roughly 85, 86. If I really went and started doing a regression analysis and a trip analysis, that number would be at least 20% lower, in my opinion. And I have some familiarity with that. So that puts me under that 100 on, I think, the most conservative aspect. Because the one thing that happens with, and it's interesting to look at 108. So 108 generates, you know, at the farm, what we call a farm point. So that recording is just south of the kind of cow barn on 108. It's 4,400 trips, average annual daily trips. That's less than Elm Street. Just to give you a point of reference. You know, Elm Street's about 141% of that number, 6,800 trips. So when you start looking at that and when you start analyzing trip data, you got to look at, bypass trips. How many people come on the farm that end up going to different uses? That reduces the number of trips. So there's a little bit of meat to those calculations, and I didn't trip into the major traffic generator, which if I did, then I'd be in front of DOT.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
We
no,
probably talked about it way more than we needed to because I was just
no.
brought it up as a matter of
No, I still think
discussion.
that- Well, when you get going, I don't want to see DOT come in and all of a sudden,
True.
you got to halt the project
True.
too, right?
Well,
True.
So I like to see everything taken care of in front. So
Even-
once you break ground, you're good to go. Just
Even-
keep on going.
If I go to DOT, it's a 1 to 3 year by the time
they'll
they
never
get me. It's 1 to 3 years by their own admission.
Right.
So I'm like, versus if DOT comes in and I'm doing something where I believe, and hey, I'm reasonable. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to, kill this project over something, but I feel like I'm at least equal at the table to come up with a solution. That's just mine.
Fair enough. It's, like I said, my personal opinion is that, if it's, you can extend as the option, to have the applicant go and talk to DOT if they want to, but I don't see it as the need to make it as a condition of approval.
Right.
The planning board's mission is to, in addition to protecting the community, but it's also to
Yeah.
not make it hard for
I
the
wasn't even
applicant.
suggesting that.
Let's say, Tim, what's your opinion?
I can't think of too many plans where we have not required a driveway permit.
He has a driveway permit.
Sometimes the DOT comes back and says you don't need to update the permit.
And then you go,
Sometimes they say it's okay as is, other times they have some suggestions. But to not go through that process, I think is not right.
Not right in what sense?
So, I mean, one of the conditions for conditional approvals is confirmation from New Hampshire DOT that a new driveway permit will not be required for the additional use, or a New Hampshire DOT driveway permit is, if it is determined to be required.
But I already have one
Right.
Well,
for my use.
And it's been approved.
we also have a note from the police chief too, that he's recommending the DOT.
Well, I don't think he recommended DOT. He recommended that there would be a light there and the driveway would be
Go
aligned.
through here.
That was the original recommendation that I saw.
Right.
And how can I put a light on 108?
No, that's a state road.
But that was his recommendation, was to, and I'll tell you why I'm concerned about realigning the driveway to line up with Corliss Hill Road, because boom, I just created an intersection,
Right.
and which I think is inherently more dangerous than the way it is now. And if DOT wanted to come in and said, we want to create an intersection, well, they're going to want to put some sort of intersection control there, whether it's a light, whether it's a blinking light, like we have at North
Have to wait
Ave,
for it.
I would think the chances of that are pretty minimal.
Yeah.
DOT likes traffic to get to the mountains very quickly, so
No,
don't
I-
stop here.
No, I agree, but if you line up that driveway, you're creating an intersection, and that's unsafe in my opinion. And I would be then altering the driveway permit that I already have.
Right.
And that would trigger DOT, which is, again,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think aligning your driveway with Corliss Hill makes sense.
But let's just throw this out there, and I think we can probably close the loop on it. If DOT at some point in time, independent of whatever we decide, wants to make some changes, it would be in conjunction with Dan and whoever else, and
They're
they
gonna
would
make
work through it.
changes,
It doesn't
yeah.
really change what we do or don't do tonight. It's really independent of us.
right, if they want to make changes, we'll be making changes.
But the thing, we usually always ask everyone to have it reviewed. That's the, and I just want to treat everybody the same.
But we don't do that, though. We don't do that. The site plans that I've been involved in this year, where we've had traffic, where one of the plans was a major traffic generator, there's no condition on getting, and it was right on 125.
Right.
There's no condition. When we accepted the so-called tractor trailer place on 108, on Westville Road, that would have been a major traffic generator, and there was no DOT in that conditional approval. So I don't think everything's the same,
I just look at 108 as not being anything like 125, where we have had constant troubles with intersections.
No,
and
absolutely
with
agree
lights.
with that, absolutely agree with
But
that.
the reason it happens is because it is so darn busy, is really the reason. 108 is not at all like 125.
Agreed,
So
agreed.
I
Well,
just think
that actually kind of is
it's
sort
up
of
to them.
a nice segue.
And remember, we've put a stop sign at the end of the road, at the end of the driveway. There'll be other signages. Please pay attention, along those lines. So I'm going to try to make that safe. And again, if DOT comes by,
Fine.
I'll be doing what they want.
Yep.
All right.
Just one more comment. I go in and out of there, quite a bit. And so I have never been with another car. It's always been in, and I go out by myself. There's no real traffic, and that's not to say they don't all come to you, because of course we do, but there really is never, ever in all these years, even with the Goodrows, when I went in and out of there, there has never been a situation where there was a trouble or there was too much. And they've had all events there too, all those years.
No,
It's
but there
just-
will be more traffic. There's no question.
There'll
about
be
it.
more traffic because you're adding now more things to the park. But at a time, they won't all be at the same time.
Yeah,
is what I'm trying to say.
I don't envision, I envision more of a steady stream of things
Right,
versus a massive.
exactly.
They'll have the best beer in New Hampshire and
That's
everybody will
right.
I
come.
think I'm gonna, is there,
Sustainable beer.
let me just ask, is there anyone from the public that wants to say anything or such? Please.
I'd like to know why the applicant showed up here tonight without any samples for us.
Jeez.
I second that.
If I knew you could be influenced with a mere sample, I would.
Is there anyone else that wants to, public comment wise, or, and if you do, I'm going to ask you to come up. I don't know if there's a microphone at that table,
You want to grab that extra one?
but I'm going to ask you to say your name and your address and then, say what you want. And but while we're waiting, Tim, just procedurally wise, we do have a question whether or not, we want to entertain, have the board weigh in whether or not this has regional impact or not.
I would win because there is none.
Huh?
I would win because there is none.
Well, we have to affirmatively, just sort of say it.
My name is Al DeRosa, or Captain DeRosa. We got the church right beside the farm. We haven't had any problems at all with the church. And they've had various times that they have a number of people in the church that the church empties out. So I can't really see why there would be a problem with his farm. And like the woman over here said, I can't see the name.
Karen?
Okay, Karen, there's not that much traffic on that road. That's what it amounts to, okay? And if they want to slow them down, they should put some cops out there with radar and collect some money for the town. That's what they should be doing.
Absolutely.
It's not a town road, it's a state road, so we don't
have Okay.
jurisdiction
on the road. I know, but I see him tagging people.
Oh, I'm not saying, I'm just
Okay, if it's a state road, you don't belong there tagging people.
Well, you can't do it on a state road. When it comes to maintenance and things like that.
But I just want it known that the farm is, that the church is right there. And they have various functions at different times. and they empty out, and we've never had an incident there.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ryan LeBrecq, 174 Main Street. I support the farm. Let the man build. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Let it be known that was the shortest
No,
comment by Dan.
That
ever.
might be the shortest Ryan LeBrecq
Oh, Ryan, I'm
comment.
sorry, yeah.
Pete Johnson. I support Dan. And as far as traffic, my 10-wheelers don't have a problem going by his place. I mean, you have to keep your eyes open, obviously, but we've never had a bit of problem. So, and hopefully he can get his project going because I'm not going to live forever.
We all want the project to get going.
Yeah, that's all I got to say.
Anyone else? In the back? No? All right. Okay.
Are all the other technical, sort of things taken care of, really beyond our purview, but things that need to kind of get done?
I think the majority have been. I think there's some things that Steve has come back with that are fairly
Yeah, we had about, I
straightforward.
think, 4 comments in Steve's letter. They're all minor, either typographical or just some clarification.
Yeah, I was reading that. Just want to make sure that there's no hangups in that technical
No,
side. of
I
things.
think everything that Steve asked us to do, we've done.
Now, as the board has had an opportunity to look at any of the emails that we've gotten on the subject and such. So I guess the last reminder that I think is, we want to affirmatively either say that it doesn't have regional impact or it does have regional impact. If the board entertains the fact that the project has regional impact, that triggers a process in which, let's say, abutting municipalities and such have like the rights of a
I'm going to do the draft motion.
Yeah, and I know when I read.
For the regional impact?
When I read through the
Yeah.
regional impact,
Well, it's,
there is no, I don't see
No.
a regional.
There's no regional impact.
well, so once you do draft motion, we can then have the discussion portion of it.
I move the application for brew pub at 82 Newton Road not be declared a project of regional impact per NHRSA 3654 and 3556.
All right, so you made it not be declared, so that changes it. So we will be voting.
We're voting, what's that?
Right, so
Because he said not declared, I just want to make sure that,
Not to be declared as a,
just so we're clear, so when we
Exactly.
vote, it's a slight change, but you have to make sure.
All right. I'll second that motion. All right. And just for clarification, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're not voting. Okay. So all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? So 5-0-0. All right. And I guess the question, are we looking to have a conditional approval tonight? Is that what we're looking for?
If we could, we
Well,
would like so. yes.
And I guess, this, you get a choice, I guess, of what you're looking at here. I mean, we could stipulate it where all conditions, have to, on condition that, have to be made, whatever's outstanding. But I believe so if the application is conditionally approved, not continued, I'm going to note for the record, but they do need to be included in the motion. If it's continued, then they should wait until the time of conditional approval. Well, that's not what I'm supposed to be reading. Sorry.
General comments, have been. recommended.
I thought there was a discussion about,
No?
so we can condition it on the application being conditionally approved with addressing all comments being one of the conditions. Is that something that you'd want done?
All the comments that were made.
So so I guess the only problem is that if there is a problem with addressing like some of the comments, and then we would have to, in essence, open the public hearing, all right, to have those questions or comments addressed. And then there might be a renoticing requirement. So I guess it's,
It's up to you.
I don't think there'll be any issue with addressing the outstanding comments from Steve Keach.
okay.
Because that's all we have, I believe, outstanding, other than
Yes,
New Hampshire DES on the septic and
Right.
finalizing the well. And the only reason the well's got pumps, is the only reason the well is we needed to do an evaluation of all the new buildings that we haven't built yet will be fully sprinklered. So I need to have a fire sprinkler guy come in and tell me what I need for pumps and stuff for the well.
What's the timeframe, assuming approval and everything else? What would be your goal to
Well,
have this open?
my goal is to is to start with the foundations, and I was going to tie in, because I wanted to do everything at once. I was going to tie in the hops barn, the barley barn, the farm stand addition, and this. Dig all the footings, get them inspected, dig the foundations, get them all inspected, and then frame everything at once. So everything will kind of go up pretty quickly. And then the time will be finishing pieces of it. But generally, as soon as I feel the ground's, stable enough.
Yeah.
So in
Best
another
case
couple
scenario to be operational with the brew pub side?
I was originally hoping for May of next year. I'm probably going to drift into the summer and fall, I mean, I always think things go faster than they do, but again, if you had told me that when I bought the farm that 7 years I'd be here, I would probably have been skeptical of that. But here I am.
All right. We all set?
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll close the public hearing portion of this application at 7:50. All right. In terms of the conditional approval, I'm of a mind, to honor the applicant's request and not condition it upon him having to affirmatively go to DOT and say, am I all set? All right, DOT, if they're going to come in,
They're going to see it.
they're going to make them do whatever he wants. I mean, DOT is going to, conform them to their will. So I don't see that as something other than just sort of,
Yeah, because they didn't change the church.
I think, DOT potentially could come down hard on us, saying, how in the hell did you approve a plan on a state road without a DOT permit or confirmation? Either that it's okay as is, or they need to make changes.
I mean, my understanding is it's already approved. It was already approved by
I
the
mean, we already
DOT,
have it
right?
approved
Would
Isn't-
driveway.
this
Yes.
project precipitate
Yep.
including that condition? Is that what you're saying, Tim?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not really our jurisdiction, correct? I mean, it was already approved by New Hampshire DOT. It doesn't fall under our purview per se because it's already approved. And if there's an issue, it's going to fall on the owner.
But
So I don't think it's under our jurisdiction to do it.
it wasn't approved for all of the additional use.
It was approved for business use.
Yeah.
Residential and business use. It's considered a major driveway. That's how it was approved. So
I would think it would go easier, in my mind, if you have SDOT up front, instead of all of a sudden you get the project on and they come and they see it. They might come down. I want to see it be easier for you in the long run.
No, you
That's because I want to see this succeed. I really do.
Well, no one wants to see it more succeed than I did. I think, again,
Let me just procedurally speaking, I mean, if we close the public.
oh, so I can't even say
Yeah,
anything.
you know,
Sorry.
It's the board sort of discussing
Shut up.
amongst itself. You know, I think the applicant made it clear that he doesn't necessarily want to go through the helpful process of asking if everything's okay. It's, and, you know, a part of the planning board's mission is also to facilitate and help applicants, not, you know, and not just,
not to add
yeah.
anything or to
And
tell
if
them
you're
that they
saying
have
that,
to
you
do
know,
this
to
and
get a
that.
yes or no,
No, it's
2 to
a-
3 years,
it's a plan.
that's not helping
We're
anyone.
approving. Correct.
But to Tim and to Tim's point, I can't recall a application that hasn't included some sort of language, you know, they're almost like throwaway statements at the end, conditioned upon getting all blah, blah, blah. It usually says something about DOT permits. I just want to do what's right. Listen, I think we're all in the same boat that we support the project 100%.
Yeah.
And it's not that different from the deed conversation where we're like, you know, what's our responsibility here? And, you know, if you can work
Yeah,
that
some of the
out.
applications where you've had the driveway permit questions, you know, recent ones, you know, without referencing them, you know, have had substantial issues associated with the driveway period. All
They're
right.
associated in different
So-
places too. Very busy.
You know, this, but
Town owns different than the state.
I don't want to,
Talking
I don't think
about
anybody wants to hinder the applicant one bit. But it's usually cleaner to take care of something that could be a problem. And also, what's the responsibility of the planning board for standard procedural? I'm not sure. I don't know that I know the
no,
answer.
I mean, the way it's phrased is in the staff report is like we're doing the applicant a favor by suggesting it. Well, you know, at what point does a favor
Favor.
become you're imposing something on them? And if the applicant doesn't want the favor that you're doing for them,
Well,
then
is-
Then
fair
don't
enough.
Do it.
Is there wording that we could put in there that sort of covers the planning board from that aspect and kind of takes that off our plate again? Because I don't think anybody wants to hinder anything.
If New Hampshire DOT approved it and he goes to put it in and they say it's not approved, it's not our fault. We didn't do it. They're the ones that originally.
They'll come down from the planning board and they'll be asking us, how could you have approved it where it's a state road?
I don't know of
Well,
any
we didn't approve
situation,
it.
my
The
6
state-
years
the
here,
state
that that's
approved it.
happened.
I'm just going by what.
Yeah,
The state
I'm
has
just going
already,
what's
the
happened.
state has already approved this. It's an approved driveway by New Hampshire DOT.
But that was
Right.
before everything additional was being added.
But that doesn't change the driveway?
Well, it might. Probably not.
Probably
Might.
not. Well, according to this, if that's what's on the plan, then no, right?
I mean, if DOT just wants to write us a simple email that says, nothing else is gonna change, then you're good.
Tim, is there something that we could put that's loosely, you know, not like upon approval by DOT, but upon, you know,
No, well, I
I'm just
mean,
throwing it out there. I'm trying to find a
you
compromise.
could, but I don't. Well, if it's suggested for the benefit of the applicant, and the applicant is sophisticated enough to say that
No.
I don't think I want that paternalistic consideration.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's fair enough. And that's the way it was phrased. It was phrased that we're doing this for the benefit of the applicant because we're concerned for the application. Well,
So does that mean if, say, we get any other application come in on the state road, we'd leave it up to the applicant then, whether they buy a DOT or someone
You
else?
take each situation
Because I'm
as
just
it's
saying-
Are we-
involved. That's
Are we
all.
saying they're already coming in with a driveway though?
But they
There's
already
already
has
an
a
approved
driveway.
driveway.
Sometimes you can, and then they gotta change it. It's happened.
yeah, but it's, again,
On
we're phrasing it
125,
as if we're
yes.
helping, we're doing it to help the applicant. And, you know, the applicant has said that
No,
thank you,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be helped. All right, so,
I'm just looking at the note you have there too, from KNA and police chief.
All right, just do the
Thorough,
vote.
they-
Just
they
take the vote.
recommend that their consultants make this recommendation. I
So,
mean, it's too bad that we're hung up on this little piece.
Yeah.
well, you know,
And that's why I'm trying to find a compromise in the wording that sort of says something along the lines of
I just don't
almost
see how,
allows that if the DOT
we definitely put the wrong thing.
conditions some sort of thing about if the DOT so chooses or something. I don't know. I'm trying to, you know,
Yeah,
this is
even the-
usually
even the-
where I
even
go
the
back to
police-
Tim with his decades of experience and wonder what he thinks is best practice.
I mean, I'm
Because
not,
there is a level of responsibility by the planning board to do it procedurally
to do
correct.
what? Where we
To
were-
address
they
the right
already
conditions.
have, they already have a DOT approved permit.
That's
Right.
good.
All right, and the police chief is, again, he's not saying anything other than the fact that he reiterates what I just said, which is, you know, the DOT can come in and do whatever they want, even afterwards. So, you
Even afterwards.
know,
right.
it's, so we're not doing anything that's restricting DOT or precluding them from anything. And if DOT wanted to come in,
They're going to come
they're
in.
going to come in and do whatever they want, so.
I would want to see it still on. That's me.
Okay, that's your
I'm only
vote.
one person. Trust me, I want to see this project. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be the first one at the place.
I don't want to see a project held up
No,
for
I don't either.
2-3 years because.
But that's why we condition it.
Because we suggested that,
The DOT can come in and hold the project up as it's underway too.
Well,
So that would help it ahead. I'm just saying that can happen. So.
It's
Yeah,
usually a
saying
throwaway
let it
line
happen.
in our conditions, all approved state permits, blah, blah, blah. It's usually a throwaway line, right?
Well, I
I mean,
think-
in our approvals.
we stated it at the meeting, the applicant is aware.
Right.
It all falls on him. You know, the applicant's going to have to make the changes if DOT comes in. And we're just putting the plan forward based on an already approved driveway from New Hampshire DOT. So
Tim, can you envision any sort of compromising language that would effectively take it off the plate, but, you know,
No, I think we either go with the condition that's there, or take that condition out. I think those are, I can't think of any other language that makes any sense.
It's his choice.
yeah, I mean, I think the applicant's clear. They thank you for our consideration, telling him that maybe you want to go reaffirm or have a conversation with DOT about the
Everything else has been done.
permitted driveway that they already have.
I don't remember ever saying it's the applicant's choice.
I don't either.
Well, then why is it all over a staff report then?
Yeah, why is it in the staff report?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's in the staff report where we're saying we're doing the applicant a favor. So it's not being,
Listed
it's
that
not being
way.
listed as something necessary. It's not
Right.
being listed as something that
Not
we're
as
doing to
definite.
protect ourselves or anything. They have
Right.
a permit, a driveway permit already. And, you know, and if DOT wants to come in at any time afterwards to make changes, they're going to. So,
Right.
you know, it seems a little gratuitous, I think, is the
For
word,
us to make
the
their
word I'm
decision.
looking for.
Right.
So,
So just tell me going forward, and I'm asking anyone, make that on any other application going forward. for the condition.
Each application you listen to
I
on its individuality. You don't compare them. If we did that,
I'm just saying,
everyone had to be the same, we wouldn't be passing half of these
I
guys.
just want to see some consistency, that's all.
Okay, that's your opinion.
You're right, and that's what I said, it's just my opinion.
All right.
Everybody has their own opinion, and that's
Yeah.
what makes it all unique.
I feel like we always have that standard condition of all applicable permits, driveway, you know, NHDOT.
he already has
And
he
he
already has a
has one.
DOT permit, right?
He has one.
You know, what we're doing is, it's being phrased as we want to, hey, you want to go ask him one more time? It's like, well,
Right.
why
He
why are we
has
asking him to go
one
ask him one
approved.
more time?
It's not like there isn't a driveway permit. If that was,
Exactly.
if that was the issue. if
Then,
that
then
was
you have to go with the deal. Yes, you do.
Then
Right.
we would have to go to DOT.
Right.
But it's my understanding it's approved, and if they have an issue with it, then that's on him. And
Right.
it's between him and the DOT. We can only put stuff through based on what we have, and it seems that having an approved driveway is one of those conditions, and it's met.
I think could we put some language in there, like the board application with the understanding that the current driveway permit is,
Something the board strongly recommends you contact DOT, but the applicant, it's up to the applicant.
approval? Yeah, approval is based on the current driveway permit. Something along those lines? Because then it just basically punts it down the road that if the DOT down the road wanted to make a change, obviously I think Dan would be amenable to working with them. And it takes us any.
Have liability. It's approved already.
Yeah, I don't, like I say,
The board recommends, but the applicant is willing to go without it. I don't know if there's a way to do it.
I think anything we do like that would be in more trouble. So I think the two options are either leave that condition in the conditional approval or take it out altogether.
I agree.
I think those are the only two options.
All right, do it by consensus or make a motion, we vote on it. So,
Well, I think the first question that Tim said, either the third condition stays in as is or comes out. I think that's what we would just have a consensus, right?
well, yes. I mean, like I said, I'll make before we vote, before we vote without the DOT, New Hampshire DOT condition, I'm just going to, say that, he already has an approved DOT, New Hampshire DOT driveway permit. It's, and we're suggesting, for the good of the applicant, that, because we're concerned about the application, that they should go to New Hampshire DOT, and the applicant is, thank you for your concern. I'd prefer not to do that. And, and I don't see where there's liability.
So you're okay with the confirmation from NHDOT, the new driveway permit will not be required? Is that?
Taking it out, just not as a
Want to take it out?
condition. I do.
Right, just take it out.
And I'm in favor of keeping it.
All right, well,
I don't think it changes a whole lot.
That's the only thing in this whole thing that we're talking about.
I know. It's,
well,
again,
if it's inconsequential, then I say we go with what's good for with what the applicant requested,
Right.
right? If it's inconsequential and it's something that's de minimis, then we go with, why burden the applicant with
What
de
we
minimis and
We listen to the applicant.
needless. So that's my point. So I'll read the motion with that taken out, and then we vote the way we're going to vote. I move to conditionally approve the application for Dan Kane Sweet Hill Farm LLC for site plan for a brew pub at 82 Newton Road, tax map 68, lot 8, and as noted in the legal notice as planning board matter 2503 with the following conditions. All final plans for recordings will have the appropriate professional stamps affixed. Receipt of all state permits by the planning department. All K&A review comments addressed and the plan updated accordingly. All recording materials to be submitted to the planning department within 45 days of receipt of all required state permits. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
do we have discussion on the motion?
Oh, yes, we do. Sorry. Just blazing ahead, sorry.
I'm all for this project, don't get me wrong. I know it's a minor detail seemingly, but
If it's
I
a
would hate
minor,
to think that someone would potentially not give their approval because of this one condition, which in the whole scheme of things isn't going to hold anything up.
Well, if it's de minimis and it's
Right.
small and it's something that you don't think's important, then I think the applicant's wish would be
Be
honored in
granted.
this, so,
It's on him.
I mean, I guess you can't have it both ways. It's either de minimis or it isn't. So. Anyone else? More discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Abstain? Are you voting, Tim?
Yeah, I'm voting no.
All right, so 3-1-1. All right. For the record, I'm just reading the additional notes. Yeah, okay. All right, bonding. The applicant will need to provide a bond estimate worksheet for site work prior to the pre-construction meeting. Additional details will be included in the notice of decision. LCHIP, Rockingham County Registry of Deeds will require a $25 LCHIP fee at the time of recording of this site plan. Impact fees. There are no impact fees being assessed for this application. Right. Thank you.
Dan, I wish you the best of luck because I look forward to it.
Yeah, Dan.
It was just one hang up.
No.
Yeah,
Hey,
that was
listen,
nothing against what you're trying to do. Believe us. I think everybody here wants to
I
see
didn't
succeed.
take it personal, just so you know. And I was relatively quiet and calm and let you discuss.
That we,
I will guarantee you, there will not be a driveway problem on that.
I will guarantee you that too.
no, and yeah.
I will guarantee that, only because I use it all the time.
No, I don't think we're concerned about that. I think it's just the procedural aspect of the language and covering our bases.
I just can't see if it's not required that you can put it, I mean,
The one
not
he
that
has
condition is
is
required.
approved.
Technically,
That's the thing.
this
People are
application is
putting in
left
a
the same.
driveway,
True.
that's different.
True.
Yeah. No, but that's different.
All
Putting
right.
in a driveway, then you're gonna have to do this.
All right, let's have some water, please. Thank you.
Sign my Mylar?
Yes, I'm going to do that at the end. Yeah. We have to just do some old business, new business, and then we'll close it. Okay.
Can't take it,
Business, new business, monkey business.
All right.
and I don't know what you're on
All right.
about.
All right. Everyone in the back, actually, we're still continuing for a little bit.
Get the gavel out.
No, he's.
The meeting's still in order?
Back up. Dan still has.
We're still in session here. All right. Now, old business, I think, Tim, you might have sent an email to some stuff that needed to be done. We wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we took a quick look a while back with the combined subdivision site plan regulation. I'd like to get that wrapped up.
Okay, so what, my understanding was that there was an issue with software that was written in, and that was sort of complicating, how we were going to combine these things. Was that the
No,
issue?
that was the master plan.
That was, yeah.
All right,
These documents are all Word, so
okay.
it's no problem.
We've had them for a while. I mean, I've gone through them. I got comments. I mean, not anything major. I think it was a pretty good job of them, but that definitely should be on the short list to push that over the goal line.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
Yep.
So is that something that we just?
Just schedule a public hearing.
Yep.
Okay.
Now.
So is it done? Is it done already, though?
I thought we were waiting for some comments from Steve Keach. Did we get those back?
I don't know.
Because that's what I recall, where this kind of got left off.
I didn't know that.
All right, so we want to follow up and see where we stand with respect to the edit process. And if it's in a finished state, we want to schedule a public hearing.
Yeah.
Correct? All right.
Or would that be probably the 19th, whatever it is, March? That would be the
I
next.
think that's pushing it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got to get the legal notice out 10 days
Yeah,
ahead,
that's
so
right. Okay.
either the April workshop or the third Wednesday in April.
All right. We can put that in as a,
One of the things, since it came up, is we probably should start to think about what we put in for DRI into those regulations, because the RPC does recommend, we have some language in there. And if we're going to start looking at DRI, we probably should have that somewhere in our procedures or our site plan subdivision regulations. Because right now it just gets dusted off and brought out. There's no process for that. We should have a process.
okay. All right, so, we're talking about editing and then holding a public hearing for these things.
Well,
And then,
I'm
and
just
then
saying is
subsequent,
that,
Yeah.
don't forget to, let's put that in there,
DRI, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
Should that seems more like a zoning thing rather than,
Well, I'm just going on what RPC, the recommendation. If you look at their recommendation, there's language that they suggest that goes into the site plan and subdivision regulations.
what is there?
So is that something we want to circulate before we, so maybe at least have a workshop, talk about it, and then schedule a public hearing? All right, so as we all know, this is probably the last meeting before we have elections and reorganization anyway, so perhaps we can put that, off until after the election, right? And then the reorg?
Reorg usually takes what, about 30 seconds?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, like, if we're going to schedule public hearings or anything like that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But-
Yeah, no, I agree, but if we gave ourselves, so our next meeting is typically the reorg, and then we may have some site plans to review.
All right.
And then we have the working session. I would suggest that we
So next working
knock off
session.
the working session and then schedule the public hearing after that.
Right,
Well,
Sounds
the
good.
election is going to be next Tuesday.
Yep.
So then when do we meet again?
We meet once more this month.
Yeah, and so we're going to be meeting then.
We meet the 19th.
Right, so what do we do on the 19th?
May have site plans
Yeah.
to,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the typical workshop is usually the first Wednesday of the month, right?
Yeah.
So April would be the perfect time, I guess, right?
all right, so shoot for April, sounds good. Anything else?
He wants to still be.
we also have those drafts of the rules of procedures. We might as well put those on that we were playing around with.
It's actually a good time to do it.
Rules and procedures. All right, anything else for old business?
I have one announcement. This will be my last planning board meeting.
That's what I wanted to move it.
There's some personal issues that have come up that I've postponed for 10 or 15 years. I can't postpone them any longer. So I've certainly come back to see the public hearing on the site plan sub-review. I mean, be a member of the public, when I'll have public comments or answer questions anyway. And I will, if you want, help out with the CIP. But that would be that's all I can handle at this point.
Tim, all I can say is thank you for your many years. I mean, you've done a lot and you've been involved as far back as I can remember, and probably even longer than that.
37 or 38 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
I mean-
38 years, isn't it?
I mean, you've got your fingerprints all over zoning and everything else in
Old
this
site plans that
town.
have your
Yeah.
names on.
You know,
Show up.
you know, you have all your fingerprints, all the master plan, CIPs, everything. I mean, thank you very much. I mean, the amount of work you've done through the years is incredible. It really is. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that, Tim. I don't think when I was chair that I could have gotten through it without you. I think that the town is better for your commitment to put up with a lot of different stuff, a lot of personalities, and then commit all the time that this requires, and to do it for, what'd you say, 37 years?
38.
Yeah, I started in 87, so I don't know what month I started.
I was about to graduate from high school.
I'll tell you what,
A long time.
you know, a simple way to put it is you don't owe the town owes you.
I wouldn't say that. It's,
No.
No, you-
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
No, and
You'll be
I-
missed, Tim.
I echo that too, Tim. I very much admire your knowledge base and
Your
the way
knowledge
you
is
approach things.
unbelievable.
And I think you've forgotten more about zoning and planning than the rest of us will ever know. I really do believe that. I think you were an amazing asset to this town.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at it, how many times, Tim, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
He's like a binky, a zoning binky.
Never be able
So a
to.
lifeline.
No, you're irreplaceable, Tim.
That's right.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Who's going to be
We'll have a
who's going to be the Tim in a couple of weeks?
We'll have a celebration.
All the more reason for the samples.
We'll
It
have
all
you on,
comes
we'll
back
have
to
you
the
on speed
samples.
dial. Bring you in as a consultant. Special consultant to the planning board.
I can just bring a keg to the meetings.
All right.
That goes one way or the other.
Well, and I think it's my understanding that it's also Lori's last this meeting.
Yes, and that's why I
So-
thought
Yeah.
it should be a
You know,
celebration.
so we have-
probably later on.
And two
Yeah,
very
we should-
important people that have
should,
been sort of the anchors on this planning board in different iterations. You know,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, I'll publicly state that Lori was invaluable. I mean, her attention to detail was like no other, you know, and so she'll be sorely missed. She did a lot of good things for the
Did
town.
a lot of research.
A lot
that
of research.
Kind of
Good
caught
research.
me by surprise. It'd be like,
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. Agreed. Absolutely.
So thanks. Big shout outs to Tim and Lori for their years of
Yep.
grief and
We'll celebrate.
thankless effort.
Yeah, exactly. How much was the stipend?
What's that?
How much was the stipend?
The stipend?
that you were getting before they changed it?
Well, you could double it and wouldn't cost the town any more.
I'll tell you what, though, how about if we triple it, will you stay?
Right,
If we triple
At
it, will you stay?
Oh, yeah, no, no.
at least.
All right. All right. That said,
No, the only thing just to remind everyone, voting is Tuesday at the fishing game, from 7 to 7. There are videos out there. I know yourself and Dan did one for the planning board.
Yep.
There's, on those warrant articles, there's one out there for the BOS. There was the candidate night video out there as well. I know the ballot is 6 pages. That's front and back, so it's equivalent to like 12 pages. Take the time, come into town hall. There's voters' guides there. You can download it. It'll probably be in your best interest to read through it, so you've already read it before you sit down at the ballot. It's
Exactly.
election day. So I think it's a good thing. Do your research and figure out
where is the election being held again?
fishing game.
Fishing game.
In the voting hours of 7 to 7.
What's the optimal time to show up with the least amount of traffic?
Usually
2 o'clock-ish or something?
2 to 3 is not bad. 9 to 11 is not bad in the morning.
Yeah.
Based on last year, Bill, we were there, I would say.
First
yeah,
thing in the morning
9 to
was
11.
horrible.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning, do not do that.
Yeah.
And I have a fairly good idea. I think it's going to be a decent turnout this year. I mean, I think the school ballot could drive some.
It's $1,000 difference in taxes.
Yes, it's.
Which is hard, you know, because
but,
you don't want to.
And on the school thing, do your research, figure out how
Yeah,
you want to vote.
Exactly.
And I also want to add to the zoning ones, there are the the two citizens petitions as well, which never gets mentioned. And to please read those very carefully and to be sure to, support them.
No, an informed voter is a good voter.
Support the vote, yeah.
Right, anything else? So we'll close the meeting at 8:27.
Wait, was that gentleman, did he want to speak?
Nope, he wants a Mylar signed.
I just, making sure my plan gets signed.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting to hang around tonight. Just so you guys know.
Oh, we're still on, just so you know. Make sure they
So 8:27, we'll close this meeting. Thank you.